morning, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'm very excited to be giving you all this month's A Garden in Every Season tour. We had a bit of a cold snap here at the biological station, but there's still lots of spring ephemerals popping up, lots of spring wildflowers emerging. April is also National Garden Month, so I hope wherever you are, you're able to get outside in your home garden or maybe pay a visit to another garden that's local to you. And once again, I'm very excited to show you all what's been happening here at the Botanical Garden. There's only more to come, so let's get started. All right, and we haven't even gone down the steps yet, not even technically into the Botanical Garden. There's already some really nice plants. We've got the Celandian poppy. It's in the poppy family. Again, as I mentioned, there's a bit of a cold snap, but these flowers and this particular genus is very interesting because it's the only native plant in this particular genus. The genus Stylophorum, and the other plants, I believe there's only about 2 or 3 in this particular genus again, and the others that are in this genus are Asian species, and this is the only native one in its distribution, which I just think is very interesting. And it has some ethnobotanical history. Indigenous Americans use this plant, I believe, for stomach relief. And it's a beautiful, beautiful plant. It's a perennial here. Sometimes it's a biennial, but it persists, well into the warmer months. So it's not just a spring ephemeral, which is nice. And again, it has, since it's in the poppy family, it has these poppy-like flowers that are bright and beautiful. And I think the buds as well that are, very soft and fuzzy, are just very nice. And so that's the Celandian poppy. And then over here, we've got some mint coming up, some more poppies. And we have the OCONEE bells. The OCONEE bells are always very exciting when they flower, and there's a lot of really interesting history with the OCONEE bells as well. So originally, Andre Michaud found these OCONEE bells in a county in South Carolina, and he wasn't able to describe them, so he took a specimen and he sent it off, and it basically was forgotten about. The specimen just kind of sat there, and it wasn't until, and this was around the 1700s, the late 1700s, I believe 1788, was when Andre was here and was trying to, go through all the local flora. And then it was sort of rediscovered, and that specimen was found by Arthur Gray, and that was in the mid-1800s. And so he was then able to describe it, and it was also, kind of thought to be this species that didn't exist. There was a lot of kind of lore surrounding it because so much time had passed between when it was discovered by Michaud and then described by Gray. And then there was a big gap, an even further gap, that people weren't able to find it in its native range. So, and that didn't happen until, gosh, I think a little bit later in the 1800s, the late 1800s, that it was finally discovered by an amateur botanist, by a young amateur botanist who found it in Davidson County. And the species, if I didn't mention it already, is very rare. It's an endemic species. It's only endemic to a few counties in the southern Appalachian Mountains. It's very special. It acts as a ground cover, and it has these singular flowers here that just pop up one at a time. And this is around, April 1st is really the best time to see them, when they're in full flower. And again, very rare species, a very, very special species that we're very lucky here in Highlands and at the biological station in the botanical garden to have several populations. So it's a very, very cool species. If you all are in the area, I encourage you all to come in and check it out. All right. It's so nice. So we've already got some amazing species, and again, we haven't even gone fully into the botanical gardens yet. Got some shining club moss that's popping up. And also I'm noticing we have some trout lilies that are popping up, which is exciting. So trout lilies are really interesting. They're one of my personal favorite species. They are a true spring ephemeral in that their leaves emerge first and then flowers, and then they ostensibly go dormant once the warmer weather hits. And they really like these moist areas. You'll typically find them in bodies of water, as you can see here on the boardwalk. There's lots of moisture, concentrated moisture, and you can also find them kind of near creeks or lakes, things like that. Again, they really like that moist soil. And I've seen a few more flowering further out, so I can speak on those a little bit more later. The Halonias are still dormant, but that's something to look out for later on this month. Those will be exciting. And another plant that we've got here is yellowroot. So yellowroot, as the common name would suggest, it does have yellow roots. I'm not going to dig any up for you all, but you'll just have to take my word for it. This plant also has some ethnobotanical significance. Again, Indigenous Americans would use this plant for issues of the liver. And it also, in more modern terms, I've known it to be used as a natural dye. Again, the pigment is a very bright yellow. So that's just an interesting sort of economic use of this native plant, but it's pretty inconspicuous. The flowers, anyways, it's in the Vernaculacea family, and that is the buttercup family. And typically, you know, when you think of a field buttercup, you'll think of these kind of white flowers. It's got this central button in the center, but with these, you have these, you know, star-shaped flowers, again, that are very inconspicuous, and it kind of almost, as you can see, like they kind of remind me of like fireworks, just the way that they are offshoot or offshot, and the foliage as well is very nice. It has a sort of yellowish fall color, and you'll typically, I don't know if you can hear the creek nearby, but you'll find it in waterways, again, very, very moist areas. It likes to be by water, just like the trout lilies. A very sweet plant. I really like it. Again, I think the dark purple contrasted with the name, I think, is just very fun. So yeah, that's YELLOWROOT. And another plant that's just right over here, again by the creek, that I wanted to discuss was FRASER'S sedge. So FRASER'S sedge, the common name, is named after John Fraser, and this is a sedge again, and it's very interesting because you know, I don't know what you all think when you think of sedge, but when I think of sedge, I typically think of, you know, kind of like a very fine textured grass, like a clumping grass, and it's in the Cyperaceae family, so it's in the sort of grass family, but it has these leaves that are just not like any other sedge, and it's an evergreen sedge, which is another feature that makes this particular plant very interesting, because most sedges, again, they typically go dormant. You know, you'll just kind of see this kind of gray, grassy balds, but again, it's an evergreen species. And what's also very interesting right now is that it's in flower. So you have these white spike flowers that pop up, and in its native range, it's typically found up against these trees like this, or in more sheltered areas. Again, it does like moist areas, and it's an endemic species too to the southern Appalachian Mountains, which is very nice. And yeah, I think it's just very, very cool that it's an evergreen sedge. And again, I like these spike flowers. I think they're just very pretty. So yeah, that's FRASER'S sedge. I wanted to just briefly come over and check the skunk cabbage. So it's obviously already finished flowering, but I think the new foliage growth is just very nice. It did get a little nipped by the colds last night, but I just think, you know, aside from the flowers, as the foliage emerges, it's just a nice feature about skunk cabbage. And soon, you know, it'll be super large and it'll take over the area, but just nice to check in. I love the way that, you know, plants can offer, you know, so much to us as visitors and observers throughout the season, whether it's flowers in the spring or fall color, or even, you know, an interesting textured bark in the winter. So I wanted to come out here on the bog area just to show you all this. It's kind of difficult to see that this red maple, and again, it's very difficult to see, but these, you'll notice it's flowering and it has these very distinct red flowers, and it's got this particular specimen has really, really beautiful bark. And you know, when we typically, or at least when I sort of think about spring flowers, I don't always think about our woody trees, right? I typically think about, again, spring ephemerals, herbaceous perennials, but it's always nice to know that the trees above us are excited and ready for spring too. You all will have to let us know in the comments down below what you've observed, because I know that there are some folks that are watching elsewhere that aren't in the Highlands area or in the Western North Carolina. So let us know what you've been seeing in terms of native plants. It's always interesting to think about the phenology, you know, the flowering times of different species, you know, as it varies state to state, or even, you know, for us in North Carolina and in Highlands compared to, say, a place in lower elevations, you know, maybe just 20 miles down the mountain, there's completely different, you know, plants that are flowering, and of course they're flowering a bit earlier than up here in Highlands in the higher elevation areas. But again, we did get some cold weather, so the rhododendrons are curled up, but things are looking to be really warm. I think we've kind of gotten the last of the cold snaps and the cold weather. Up until this point, the station had been getting some really nice temperatures, a little bit of rain as well. And of course, with spring on its way and things only beginning to pick up more, we'll definitely have some more rainfall in the coming weeks. So around here there's a few more trout lilies, and these are almost in flower. They're just barely there, but you can see the buds. I think another piece that's really interesting about the trout lilies is their growth structure. So they have a corym, which is not a true bulb, but it's actually a modified stem. So it's kind of like this stem that's just been expanded into this corym structure, which is, they're typically, I mean, for trout lilies it's very small, but there's much larger ones as well. So I just think that that's a very interesting way. So it's not a bulb but a corym, but still very cool. And again, since we're here by the creek, there's lots of the leaves popping up. And gosh, we have some nodding trillium as well, which will be exciting to see once it's in flower. There's some other trillium species outside of the botanical garden. Oh, there's some more OCONEE bells. Oh gosh, sorry. There's some other, again, trillium species that are very close to flowering as well. So if you're in the area, do stop by. I think they should be opening up, I don't know, within the next week or so, which is exciting. Oh gosh. We've even got some ice taffy. That's what I call it. I don't know what other folks call it, but that's what I call it. I wanted to just stop and talk about the scented hay ferns that are popping up. I think they're very sweet. You can see these fiddleheads here. And hay-scented fern, obviously the common name refers to when the foliage is crushed. It just smells like hay, apparently. We've got some wild geranium down here as well. Oh, and we've got some blue cohosh popping up. That's another one to look for in April. That'll be flowering probably late April is my guess. But I think this has some really beautiful buds, and this new growth is a purplish tint as well, which is very pretty. Lots and lots of things to look out for in the month of April. There's only more to come, and as the days are getting longer, and you know, we've passed the spring equinox, things are only going to pick up. So I hope you all enjoyed this tour, and I hope you all learned something. If you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment. I will be there to answer questions, as well as Paige. And again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all can pay us a visit very soon.